In 1960, the fastest woman on Earth walked with a metal leg brace until she was 12 years old. Doctors told her mother she would never walk normally. She was the 20th child born into a family of 22. They lived in rural Tennessee. They had almost nothing. This is what happened when she got to Rome. Clarksville, Tennessee, 1940. Ed Rudolph worked multiple jobs to keep 22 children fed. His wife Blanche cleaned the houses of wealthier families during the day and came home to cook for her own at night. They shared a 2-bedroom house in a town where black families were told, in law, not just in practice, exactly where they could sit, where they could eat, and how much of the world they were allowed to want. On June 23, 1940, Wilma Glodine Rudolph came into that world 2 months too early. 4.5 pounds. The doctors were not sure she would survive the week. She did. Before Wilma Rudolph turned 5 years old, she had survived double pneumonia, scarlet fever, and then polio. Polio in 1944 was not just an illness, it was a sentence. The virus attacked the nerves in her left leg. Partial paralysis set in. Her foot turned inward at a permanent angle. The nearest clinic that would treat black patients was 50 miles away in Nashville. The family had no car. A doctor fitted Wilma with a metal brace that ran from her ankle to her knee. He told Blanche Rudolph, "Your daughter will never walk normally. This brace is permanent. I'm sorry." Blanche Rudolph drove 50 miles home and said nothing to her children about what the doctor had told her. Instead, she organized them. Every day, without fail, a different sibling would sit with Wilma and massage her left leg. Not once a week, not when they remembered. Every single day. 6 siblings rotated through the schedule. Blanche set the order and kept it. Some mornings it happened before school. Some nights it happened after dinner by lamplight. They also took Wilma to the clinic in Nashville once a week for physical therapy. A 100-mile round trip every week for years with no car of their own. They borrowed neighbors' cars. They coordinated rides. They made it work. The doctors had written a verdict. The Rudolphs had simply decided not to accept it. In 1952, Wilma Rudolph walked into church without her metal leg brace for the first time in her life. She was 12 years old. She later said it was the greatest moment of her life. Before Rome, before the gold medals, before the Pope, before any of it, it was that Sunday morning in Clarksville, Tennessee that Wilma Rudolph said she would never forget. She had proven the doctors wrong before she'd ever picked up a pair of running shoes. The leg brace came off, and Wilma Rudolph ran. At Burt High School in Clarksville, she played basketball first. She was fast enough that the boys on the street would stop their own games to watch her. Her coach, Clinton Gray, noticed something that went beyond just speed. She didn't run like someone who had learned to run. She ran like someone who had been waiting to. By the time she was 13, she had not lost a single race against anyone at her school. Word traveled 45 miles north to Nashville to a man named Ed Temple. Ed Temple had been coaching women's track at Tennessee State University since 1950. His program was called the Tiger Bells, and by any objective measure, it was the most successful women's track program in the history of American athletics. Over his career, Temple would send 40 athletes to the Olympic Games. 39 of them would win medals. 40 athletes, 39 medals, from a single program at a historically black university in Nashville, Tennessee. Most Americans have never heard his name. Temple ran the Tiger Bells the way other coaches ran professional programs. Early morning runs before classes began, double training sessions. No excuses, no shortcuts, no lowered expectations. Not for anyone. He also had a rule that set him apart from nearly every coach of his era. Every Tiger Bell had to be enrolled as a student. Every single one. "You are a student first," he would say. "An athlete second. A Tiger Bell always." When he heard about a 13-year-old girl in Clarksville who hadn't lost a race in 2 years, he drove down to watch her himself. Wilma Rudolph was 14 years old when she first trained with the Tiger Bells. She arrived at Tennessee State for summer training sessions, sleeping in the dormitories, eating in the cafeteria, running before the sun came up. For a girl who had grown up in a 2-bedroom house with 21 siblings, a dormitory room felt like a palace. But the training was unlike anything she had known. Temple's sessions were designed to break you down before they built you back up. Sprints until your legs gave out. Starts until the technique was automatic. Relay handoffs until the baton felt like an extension of your own hand. Some girls quit in the first week. Wilma Rudolph, the girl who once could not walk, never once considered it. In 1956, at 16 years old, Wilma Rudolph qualified for the United States Olympic team. She was the youngest member of the squad. She had been running competitively for less than 3 years. The games were in Melbourne, Australia, on the other side of the world from a 2-bedroom house in Clarksville, Tennessee. The U.S. women's relay team won bronze. Wilma's individual events did not go as she hoped. She was eliminated in the early rounds. She was 16. She had just competed at the Olympic Games, and she was disappointed. Not satisfied with bronze, not grateful just to be there, disappointed. On the flight home from Melbourne, she told Coach Temple exactly one thing. She looked at Ed Temple and she said, "I want to be the fastest woman in the world." Temple looked back at her. "Then you have 4 years of work ahead of you." She was 16 years old, had grown up in poverty, had survived 3 near-fatal illnesses, had spent 8 years wearing a metal leg brace, and she had just told one of the greatest track coaches in American history exactly what she intended to do. 4 years. Rome was waiting. Rome. September 1960. 83 nations, 5,300 athletes, the largest Olympic Games in history up to that point. And among all of them, a 20-year-old woman from Clarksville, Tennessee, who had spent the last 4 years training before dawn and going to bed with the promise she had made on a plane home from Melbourne still running through her head. She had arrived. Now she had to run. Between Melbourne and Rome, Wilma Rudolph had become a mother. She gave birth to her daughter Yolanda at 17 years old, single, no financial support, no safety net. Ed Temple let her come back to the Tiger Bells. Her mother took Yolanda in, and Wilma Rudolph returned to the track. She trained while other athletes rested. She ran intervals while others slept. She repeated starts, over and over and over, until the first 3 steps of a sprint were no longer something she thought about. They were something she simply did. By the summer of 1960, she was the fastest woman in the United States of America. The question was whether she was the fastest in the world. September 7th, 1960. The women's 100-meter final, Stadio Olimpico, Rome. 8 women on the starting line, the fastest 8 women on Earth. In lane 4, number 267, Wilma Glodine Rudolph, age 20, Clarksville, Tennessee. The gun fired, and within 30 meters, it was over. She crossed the finish line in 11.0 seconds, a world record. The crowd at the Stadio Olimpico fell completely, utterly silent for 3 full seconds, and then erupted. The Italian journalists in the press box were already reaching for their typewriters. They had one name for her: La Gazzella Nera, the Black Gazelle. She was not finished. 4 days later, Wilma Rudolph won the 200-meter final, her second gold medal of the Games. 3 days after that, she anchored the United States 4x100 relay team to a third gold medal. 3 gold medals, 8 days, 1 woman. The first American woman to win 3 gold medals at a single Olympic Games. In Rome, she was everywhere. Crowds gathered wherever she walked. The Pope, Pope John XXIII, requested a private audience with her. The French followed her motorcade through the streets of Rome, cheering her name. Wilma Rudolph had become the most celebrated athlete at the 1960 Olympic Games. Back home in America, her hometown paper put her on page 7. When Wilma Rudolph came home to Clarksville, the city wanted to give her a parade. A victory parade. For their own. The fastest woman on earth, 3 Olympic gold medals. The city began to plan. And then someone told Wilma how it would be organized. The parade would be segregated. Black residents on one side of the street, white residents on the other, as Tennessee law required, as Clarksville had always done. Wilma Rudolph, the woman the Pope had just met, the woman the French had just followed through the streets of Rome, the woman who had just made history on the world's largest stage, said no. She told city officials she would not attend her own parade unless it was fully integrated. Every person on the same side of the street, no separation, no compromise. The city of Clarksville, Tennessee, agreed. On the day of Wilma Rudolph's homecoming parade, black and white residents of Clarksville, Tennessee stood on the same side of the street for the first time in the city's history. It was the first racially integrated public event Clarksville had ever held. A girl who could not walk at 5 years old had just changed her city's laws by refusing to show up. Wilma Rudolph retired from competition in 1962. She was 22 years old. She left on her own terms at the absolute peak of her career because she decided it was time. In the years that followed, she founded the Wilma Rudolph Foundation, a nonprofit providing free coaching and academic support to underprivileged children. Not for children who could afford it, for the ones who couldn't. Wilma Rudolph died on November 12, 1994. She was 54 years old. Her metal leg brace is in the Tennessee State University archives, the same brace a doctor once said she would wear for the rest of her life. That leg, the one they said would never work, ran faster than any woman on earth had ever run before. 3 times.